Hi, I'm Rebecca, and my life is great. I own a large construction company that has been working flawlessly for several years. I earn a lot of money, have a swell apartment in addition to a house, and several expensive cars to boot. In short, I've got everything a modern businesswoman can only dream of. But my life wasn't always so flawless. Once I was just a little girl who was lost and desperately needed her father's attention. Everything began many years ago. At the time, I was only 13. I've got a pretty nice family. My mom was a university professor, and my dad owned a large construction company of his own. I guess you could say it was in the family. A shrewd businessman, he wasn't fully satisfied with his success. He wanted more, and he had plans on how to do that. It seemed to me that we as a family all really loved each other and that we had a strong family. Mom and Dad loved each other, and both of them loved me. Dad always sent us to various resorts, and we've been to almost all the beautiful countries in the world. I was sure that my life was a paradise. The only thing that really bothered me was the constant absence of Dad. He used to book trips for two, me and my mom. He always said that he had a lot of work to do and that there was no time for such frivolities. But one day I finally realized that that was not the case. I remember that I saw them on my way back home from school one day. I was walking past my favorite cafe. I looked inside and was stunned. I saw my dad, wealthy and handsome, sitting there, having some nice tea with a young girl. He must have been making jokes, and she kept bursting out into laughter. It was as if I had received a tub of cold water right to my face. But I still tried to throw away the thoughts that immediately crossed my mind. I told myself that it was just my father's colleague whom he was treating to dinner. So I went home and knocked on the door. Mom opened it. I looked into her face and I realized that she had gotten older, and I felt that there was a storm brewing. It turned out that she had already known everything, yet she was still hoping that Dad's relationship with that girl wasn't serious. Unfortunately, Mom was gravely mistaken. At home, I described to her what Dad's date looked like with that stranger. Mom and Dad had a talk that evening, and Dad made a decision. He decided to dump us both because he didn't want to spend neither time nor money on us anymore. Mom and Dad had a huge fight, and then my father left the house and never returned. He made regular alimony payments, trying to buy us off with money. Sometimes he sent toys and some vouchers, but I craved his attention. He didn't want to give me any of that. You see, I still, or at least I did, really love my dad. And he just threw me and my mom away like we were trash, and I haven't seen him for many years after he left. Time flew by. I grew up. I started a building firm of my own. Now my company is a market leader. And a few months ago, my dad returned into my life all of a sudden. He tried to get a job at my company. He didn't even know that I was the company's owner. But when I looked through his documents, I was stunned. It was all pretty weird. Once my father had a construction company of his very own, and now he wants to work for me as a simple foreman. Well, I was kind of glad that he decided to get a job at my company. Now I can have my vengeance. You see, I'm still single. Thanks to him, I'm terribly afraid of men's treachery. And my therapist told me that my fear was born when my dad left the family. Each day he's forced to be audited. He's often sent to inspect construction sites despite his late age. Father's constantly making attempts to arrange a meeting with me face to face, yet I've given him no opportunity to do so. He is here to work, not to talk. He's got a crapload of tasks to do. I don't care that it's hard to do all those as an aged man. He has to cope well, otherwise he'd lose his job. And that's it. You see, my mother is in the hospital. She's been there for several years now, because of a mental disorder. It was him who made her suffer, and I won't let him get away with that. No, he ought to pay for everything that he's done to us. Every time I see him resting, I send a secretary with a new task. I watch how my father gets up, sighs heavily, brushes his gray hair, and moves on with another assignment. His eyes are tired. He must have given up. Perfect. Now he has no choice but to answer for the sins that he's committed. I feel like I can do anything to him, and I abuse my powers gladly. Still, he's really the one to blame here. He hurt my mom and I, and now he must atone for his sins by doing heavy labor. Once I even forced him to lay bricks at a construction site, as several builders quit. Well, it was me who fired them beforehand so that my father could suffer even more. He was used to living like a king. Now he's got a lot to answer to. He says he's got a lot of tasks to do and he can't cope with those. So I cut his salary and let him go with no bonus. Furthermore, I reprimanded him in front of his co-workers at the staff meeting. It's construction business after all. You either do what you've been ordered to or you suffer. What do you think about my actions? As for me, I consider them justified. Father left me and my mom when we needed him the most. When I needed him the most, he tried to buy me off with money. And now his past has finally caught up to him.
My greetings. I'm George, Rebecca's father, and recently I learned that now I work for my own daughter. Once I had a construction company myself, and now my girl owns the most prominent construction company in our country. Guess that runs in our family. I'm really proud that I raised such a daughter. An extraordinate success. Well, yeah, I left the family many years ago. Somehow I lost contact with my daughter, yet I always tried to remember her. Besides, I didn't stop caring about her even after I left her mom. I wasn't exactly the greatest dad, I must admit. Yet I really tried to provide for Rebecca and her mom. Even when I was her mother's husband, I allowed them to travel anywhere in the world. My girl experienced so much, saw so many miracles, and I really paid for all their expenses. I took care of my daughter, only up to a certain age, of course. I don't really think she still needed me when she became 13, though. She was already a teenager, ready to live a life of her own. Moreover, she always had a mother. Her mom provided Rebecca with all the emotional support she'd ever need. Even then, I never stopped sending them alimony payments. I also bought toys and gadgets for my daughter. And I even sent them vouchers. Perfect life if you ask me. I'm sure I did a lot for my daughter. She even decided to start her own business because she had me as a living example. Besides, she inherited all my best character traits. She's just a fragile girl, and she's able to lead a construction business better than any man. Yet now, I've lost everything and I have to start everything from scratch. Funny thing is, my second wife ruined me. That charming young lady took over my business and almost all of my real estate. She really outsmarted me, because I apparently got too old and ugly for her liking. I loved her so much. I idolized her. I literally carried her in my arms. Yet she repaid my kindness very poorly. I'm too old to start another business. Still, I have to make a living somehow. I don't want anything fancy, just a small flat, a steady paycheck, and some food to put on the table, nothing more. And my own daughter decided to ruin me even further. But Rebecca only makes my life much harder. She gives me too much work. I simply can't handle that, and each evening I come home extremely tired. And I'm not a young man, after all. I haven't got much energy left. And to think that I was so glad when I learned that I worked for my own daughter. I was sure that my life would be smooth sailing, yet Rebecca never actually met with me. She doesn't even want to talk to me by phone, despite me calling her multiple times every day. Funny thing is, I receive all my tasks directly from her, albeit through the secretary. What's wrong with her? Why is she so angry at me? Why doesn't she want to talk to her own father? All our conflicts are the things of the past. I'm ready to pay her as much attention as she wants now, yet she doesn't even want to make even the slightest contact with me. I can't really work for my daughter's company anymore. I just have to get Rebecca to talk. I have to explain everything to her. I had to tell her about the conditions I currently live in. But I don't have any way to make contact with my own daughter. All my co-workers are afraid of her, and no one will even tell me her address. What should I do now? Should I still try to make contact with my daughter and have a talk with her? Or should I just resign and search for my own place in life from now on? What would you advise, Rebecca? Would you try to forgive your father? And what would you do if you were George? Tell us in the comments section below and subscribe to our channel for new interesting stories.